am so excited for the conversation that I had today with my friend Kimberly. Kimberly is crushing it, not just on Instagram, but she's crushing it in her business. And so we had her as a guest on the show to talk about what she has done with Instagram and with her business and how she helps her clients. And the title of today is talking about 5 mistakes that creators are making when it comes to Instagram. And so we had the greatest conversation. I do want to read to you her bio so you can know a little bit about her before we get into the conversation. So, Kimberly is an award winning London based food photographer, stylist, content creator, business mentor, creative business mentor, and food photographer, teaching. Having taught thousands of students from around the world food photography, food content creator, and food styling. Yes, please. Kimberly runs a successful food photography business and with clients including Sony, KitchenAid, Oprah Daily, and many more. Kimberly hosts the Eat, Capture, Share podcast and is the author of Amazon best-selling books, Creative Food Photography, and How to Make Your Food Famous. Listen, that book, How to Make Your Food Famous, is her newest book, and we are so excited for her to talk about it on the show. And so the next voice that you're going to hear is going to be between me and my friend Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly girl, how are you doing?
Hey, Kenya, lovely to see you. I'm doing good,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Oh, so good. So good. So, you guys, if you're listening to her and she doesn't sound like she's from the US, it's because she's from where, Kimberly?
Well, I am from the US actually, but I live in London and I've been here for over 20 years. So there's
Yeah.
kind of like a mellow, a mellowed out American accent, I would say.
Yes, yes, she has that, like, you have, like, little pockets of, like, like, I'm doing the little shimmy with my shoulders, you have, like, the little pockets of it, so, yeah, you could definitely tell that you've been there for a little while, so
A
I'm very
long time.
excited, to talk with you today, you guys, y'all know that we've been having guests more often because I really want you guys to learn from really powerful, amazing people in different spheres, and Kimberly has quite the story. She's going to talk to you guys about Instagram. But before we get into Instagram stuff, like tell us a little bit about you. So, first off, I mean, you said you used to live in the US. Like, tell us about that first and how did you get to where you are now?
To be honest, I've lived a little bit everywhere, mainly and mostly in Europe because my parents worked in the airline industry. So we
Mm,
moved around constantly. And then I did come back to the US for my undergrad, but then I moved back and then I moved to South America, like a little bit of everything. But
mm,
here's really where I feel kind of most at home, I guess. And but I do love like living in London. I could just hop on a plane and be in New York in 5 hours if I want to. I do love that.
mm.
I do love it. Yeah. So that's my kind of globe-trotting globe-trotting situation.
Yeah. And how often do you come here?
Not that often. I go to Latin America more, I have to say, just
Okay.
because my husband's family are all over there. Um, so gosh, maybe I came last time. Actually, I came last time was for a mastermind that you and I were in.
Yeah.
That's the last time I was there. It was probably maybe like now 2 years ago. I think it's probably 2 years ago
Yeah.
now.
It's been about 2 years.
Yeah, it was a good one. Was a good one, San Diego.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I love to hear that. I was just talking to somebody about like wanting to go move abroad for like 6 months or so. Because I'm like, why not? I mean, you only get one life and so everything
Absolutely.
shouldn't be stuck in the same place if you can,
Absolutely. I
you
think
know.
for one, you really appreciate where you feel most at home. You really appreciate the things that you now take for granted. But it's just a different experience. You meet new people, new ways of eating, living life, enjoying
Mhm.
community. It's also hard, like finding your
Mhm.
feet in a new place. You've moved a lot. Like finding your
Mhm.
feet in a new place takes a lot of boldness, braveness,
Mhm.
energy, but it makes you a stronger person, so I'd say do it. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So good. We might do it. We'll see what happens. Me, I'm like
Mhm.
always like, God tell me what to do. And if he don't tell me to
Mhm.
do, can't go. So I'm like, give me the green light. Yeah. Okay. So
Love
then, talk to us about what it is that you kind of do. Definitely going to talk about the mistakes that creators are making on Instagram, but
Mhm.
talk to us about like how you got started as a creative, period, and
Yeah.
then how you got going on Instagram.
Yes. So I worked actually for 15 years as an adoption social worker. I then
Mm,
had my son, and I kind of realized that I didn't want to do a 9 to 5 anymore. And to be honest, an adoption social worker is more than 9 to 5. Like there's emergencies, there's all sorts of things going
Mhm.
on, right? And then when I had him, I was like, this is not going to work anymore. I want to work for myself. What are the things that I'm into? What am I passionate about? And I decided to retrain as a nutritional therapist. And that was like a 3 year course. And in the very first year, I was like, wait a minute, I'm investing time, I'm investing money into this. When I graduate, no one's going to know who I am. No one's going to know how to book me. Will not have made, I need to do something now so that by the time I
Mhm.
graduate, I have some sort of presence. And at that time, so this is just over 10 years ago, at that time, Instagram was just coming into being.
Mhm.
Like, people were like, have you seen this thing? What is this thing? And so I decided to open an Instagram account and to start sharing recipes. And then, people started following me and I started taking photos and people liked what I did. And one thing led to the next. By the time I graduated, I had done lots of influencer work. It wasn't called that at the time, but I got a lot of influencer contracts. I was asked to food style and photograph cookbooks, magazine covers, all the things. And so I was like, actually, I think I want to do that rather than
Mhm.
be a nutritional therapist, and that's kind of how it began. And Instagram was a fundamental tool for me to reach people, for people to notice me. People then started asking me to teach them food photography. So I have now online courses and so on. And, Instagram was really the catalyst for everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So when was that when you first started with with school?
So I think I started my Instagram was in 2014. So
Mhm.
just May 2014. So just over 10 years ago that I opened my Instagram
Wow.
account. So a long time, a long time.
And when did things start to take off for you? When you say you had like brand deals, when did all that start to happen?
So I would say probably within the year, I was monetizing. It was a slightly different landscape then, and especially here in the UK, things in the US were much more advanced.
Mhm.
Um, like there was people like Pioneer Woman who you might know,
Oh
like
yeah,
like she
Reeve.
kind of started. So there were like a couple of breakaway people, but here in the UK, we're always a couple of steps back. So I don't know if you
Mhm.
have listeners in other parts of the world, like we're always a couple of steps back. So but within the year, I was getting paid to food style, to create recipes. It was photos only then. There was no reels, no
Correct.
video. And just one thing led to the next. So by the time I graduated, I left my part-time job and I decided to do this full time and I haven't looked back since.
So when was that?
So I graduated, I think it's 2016, I want to say.
Oh wow.
2016, yeah, a long time, a long time.
Wow. That is so fun. So what would you say is the thing that you love most about what you're doing right now?
What I love most is that no day is the same. And I'm
Mhm.
guessing it's the same for you. Like, if I
Mhm.
only did the podcast or if I only did teaching, or, maybe I would get bored, but I love the variety. And I think as a creative person, I love that no day is the same and that I get to pick and choose. If
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know if you feel the same. Like, sometimes social media gets a little too much for me. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on building a new course or updating the
Yeah.
course that I have or taking on more food photography clients or styling a book or I just get to choose. I've written books just like you too. Like, I
Yeah.
get to pick and choose where I feel my energy moving me towards, and I love that. Whereas my 9 to 5 was much more rigid. I couldn't be like, I don't feel like doing that today. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I get to set my tone, and that is what I love about what I do.
Oh yeah. No, that's beautiful. So let's talk about your Instagram journey. Obviously, you are, when someone looks at your account, they would say, "Wow." First of all, it looks amazing.
Thank
And
you.
then your numbers are incredible. Like, bring us back to when you first got started on social media with what you're doing now. Like, what was that like for you? Like, I know there's someone who is saying, "Oh my gosh, she sounds amazing. Her stuff looks great." Da 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 da. But what was it like for you when you were first getting started?
So you have to understand, like when I first went on Instagram, like literally 10 years ago, nobody really knew. It was like you post something and then all these people were commenting. I was like, who
Mhm.
are these people? How are they
Mhm.
finding me? Like,
Mhm.
this is so weird. And hashtags then were the way to be discovered.
Yeah.
And then I just so that was actually now in retrospect, that's it's such a bizarre concept. Even now, if you think about it, you put something out on the internet and people all over the world get to see what you do. Like if you think about it, really think about it, it's absolutely bananas. It's
Mhm.
crazy, you know?
Mhm.
And then it was also this realization like, wait a minute, I'm in control of this process. I have a say in my journey. I have a say in how I build my brand, how I communicate, the community that I nourish, that I build around me. Like this is phenomenal. Like I just
Mhm.
remember it was like a very yeah, very empowering feeling. And I
Mhm.
think I didn't in the beginning I was very green. Like I didn't realize like I was just posting and then kind of waiting for people to
For
press
sure.
like, but then there was a moment, as I said, there were a couple of breakaway people, people who were monetizing their creativity. People were getting cookbook deals, people who were,
Mhm.
all the things, TV shows. I remember Molly, I think she now has a TV show also, Molly on the Range or something. She's got garden, home and garden.
Oh my
Maybe we can put
gosh.
a link in. Like, I remember when she came up, like, I just remember everything, and I was like, okay, wait a minute, this can be more than just a little hobby, a little marketing. This can be so much more.
Mhm.
And so I went all in and I became a little bit more strategic. As I said, I came from a social work background and then from a nutritional therapist background. I didn't have marketing background or sales. I didn't know how to communicate, but it is a muscle, I think. I've grown, the one that you have to grow, where you're like, wait a minute, this actually one of the things I was thinking, like one of the mistakes I feel people make with Instagram is that they don't look at their stats. They don't look at what's working or
Mhm.
why did this resonate? Like, can I unpick what are the pieces of the puzzle that I can take and
Mhm.
then, reuse and improve on for my next reel or my next photo or my next post. So
Mhm.
that's what I started doing very early on. It's like, okay, this got 10,000 likes. What just happened there? If everything else gets 2,000 likes, like how can I replicate that? What is it about this particular post so that you understand who you're speaking to, what they need, what they want, and build from there. And that's, for example, how I ended up building my courses. It never occurred to me in a million years that people would want to learn food photography from me
Mhm.
until I looked at my stats. Every time I shared a tip about food photography or whatever styling or something, which is, what my courses ultimately are about, my reach, my engagement, the questions was just through the roof. If I had
Mhm.
not dug into my stats, I would not have known that. But then seeing that, I could then start building products around the biggest questions, the biggest pain points, which was a complete game changer. But I've kind
Yeah.
of taken you off piste.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So one more thing. So with
Mm,
regards to like back then when you first
mm.
got started, like were you terrible at it? Like did you invest in learning Instagram like in the beginning? Like I know where you are
Yeah.
today, but like what were
Yes.
you doing like back then?
So back then, there was no way of learning. There weren't. I mean, even then, YouTube was still kind of. I didn't know
Mhm.
about YouTube actually. It was still in its infancy. Nobody had online courses. That did not
Mhm.
exist. That was that you had to kind of figure stuff out. I did invest in books, but actually, when it comes to food photography, for example, there was just one book. Which is why I wrote another book, but there was just one book on the topic that everybody got. Like, there was so little. There was just very little. And the other thing, I was on the platform when it was chronological, when there were no algorithms. That's how
Yeah.
old school I am. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, for sure. So then did you eventually invest in someone teaching you Instagram?
Yes.
Okay.
So not so much Instagram actually, but what I did invest in was business coaching. So
Mm.
I invested in business coaching really early on because I could sense that, and it's actually my business coach who advised me to start online courses. Like she's like,
Mm.
okay, if this is what people want, why don't you build that out? We talked it through and built it out together, kind of thing. Because I knew there was things that I was doing right, but I was putting in so much time and energy. I was getting likes, I was getting follows, I was getting all the things, but I wasn't getting dollar bills into my account like that.
Right.
Not that the amount of work that I was putting in, it wasn't reflected. So I was making money for sure, but I was undercharging. I was not,
Mhm.
I wasn't promoting. So it's like there's something here missing. There's a skill set that I don't have that I need to fill. And so that's the big investment I've made. Really, I would say from year two onwards, I've consistently worked with business coaches, and throughout
Yeah.
has been just the best investment. The
Oh,
best.
yeah, yeah, I'm such a big proponent of that. I remember my first investment was, like, $300 into someone I literally coulda called the person on the phone, I knew them, but I said,
Mhm.
"I'm gonna pay for that hour of their time so I can
Yeah.
get a different version of them." And
Yes.
I got that, by paying for the hour, and then I ended up investing $10,000 into a year-long coaching program, which
Amazing.
changed the whole direction, of my life. And
Yeah.
I say that because I know people listening, they're gonna like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go and do exactly what she's doing on Instagram. I'm gonna do what King is doing on TikTok." And it's like, well, the direction that we got, the coaching that we
Mm.
got really is what kinda set us
Yes.
up for
Yes.
the journey where we're at today is because somebody
100%.
we paid for somebody to help us. We skipped 10,000 steps by working with someone to help
100%.
us.
And I think it's really about understanding where your strengths lie. Like I think I figured Instagram out quite quickly, and my the strong muscle I have is creativity.
Mhm,
And as a social worker, what I was always doing was trying to understand how people feel and trying to capture people's feelings. So for me, writing captions, for example, that comes to me very naturally. But the
mhm,
skill set I lacked was marketing. That piece of the puzzle, the whole business side, pricing. I didn't know that was the area I needed to get some
mhm.
support in. But then maybe somebody listening was like, I got the business side down,
Correct.
but the whole creative side, the coming up with ideas, that's my weak spot. That's where I need to invest. So it's about knowing where you need to get that support.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the mistakes that creators are making
Mhm.
when it comes to Instagram. And so when you say creative, because obviously there's different types of creative, but
Mhm.
the typical person that you typically help when you say creatives, tell us about who those people typically are, and then we'll get into the mistakes.
Yes. So most of the people that I work with tend to be within the food industry. So it could be people who own cafes, bars, restaurants. It can also be people who want to sell baked goods from home, for example, that kind of
Mhm,
thing, as well as creators who want to work as influencers and develop recipes. They want to work with KitchenAid, they
mhm,
want to work with whatever other brand is out there. And then also food photographers and people want to sell their service within the photography, styling kind of industry. So those tend to be
mhm.
the main my main clients really. But I would
Nice.
say that the tips that I share or be sharing today apply to anyone really, whatever area you come at it. And
Mhm.
I think the mistakes we'll be talking about, I see them across the board.
Mhm. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about them. So, like, how many do
Mhm.
you want to share with us? I'm gonna take notes on this too. How
Yeah.
many do you want to kind of share with the audience today? So that way we know, like, we got one, two, three,
Yeah,
four.
should we do like 5? And
Yep, that
then
sounds great.
if we get stuck in one and want to dig a little deeper, then we do 3, but I've got about around 5 prepared. So the very first one I would say is that I feel that a lot of the times people are very camera shy. I know you're not. I'm also okay being in front of the camera,
Right,
but
right,
a
right.
lot of people are really camera shy. Now, am I going to say that you cannot find success if you don't show your face? No, you can still find success, but there is
Mhm.
just an incredible powerful element into that authentic piece. That's you stepping in front of the camera, you doing a voiceover, you
Mhm.
including something personal, an anecdote in the voiceover rather than say a trending audio. Like you can
Mhm.
do that, but you're going to get extra rewarded. You're going to get that close connection. And I think people for a very long time, and still I see it, just so heavily rely just on trending audios without going the extra mile and putting in that voiceover, without
Yep.
showing up in front of the camera, without sharing a little bit of A little bit of personality. So
Mhm.
that is mistake number one. Like, let's not use trending audios as a crutch. Let's get a little bit more personal.
Yes,
And yeah, let's make it a little bit because nobody can be you, nobody can do what you do. And that's what's going to allow you to stand out.
for sure. That's very good. Okay, what's number 2?
The second one, people are not utilizing Instagram stories. Instagram stories is super duper powerful. You're
Mhm.
smiling, so I think you know, but, like, so many sales that happen from that, from, DMs that come out of that process of sharing your behind the scenes, sharing,
Mhm.
things that aren't so curated, aren't so perfect, um, you know, polls, questions, all the things, that's where you're really forging a deeper connection. You might have a reel go viral and people
Yep,
follow you, and then they forget about you. You
correct.
wanna be sure that you build that bond with them, and that happens on Instagram stories. So
Yeah.
nothing again, nothing where you just, "I'm in a cafe, this is what it looks like." No, talk to the camera, like,
Yes,
ask questions, get to know your audience. Like, Instagram stories is like a whole app in and of itself,
in itself.
and it's really honestly worth doing it at least 5 days a week. Even if you're not posting on your grid, keep that connection. You'll see
Yeah.
fewer people drop off, and unfollow if you keep that bond strong. So
Yep,
that's the
very
second
good.
thing.
Mhm.
Don't people are underutilizing Instagram stories. They're not utilizing it to its full potential.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that you would encourage someone to do when it comes to stories? I know you mentioned, and obviously I love Instagram. You mentioned like doing it 5 days a week if they can and actually
Mhm.
talking. Or what are 3 things you think somebody should be doing in their stories?
There's a couple of things that work really well for me, and I have
Hmm.
to say it's important to test these out to see if your audience is similar. But some of my clients have done this, it's worked for them as well. Anything behind the scenes. So
Hmm.
if you've got, I don't know, maybe you've got a retail business, setting up the stuff, in your shop window, people love to see it. Maybe you
Hmm.
have a DIY thing, how you pick the paint color. Like, I don't care. Like, people want to feel like they're there with you, like
Hmm.
they're getting the juicy details that nobody else can see, like, that's what they
Correct.
want. And sometimes I feel dumb, I'm like, "I'm just doing the dishes." People love it. People love
Hmm.
it. People love it. And I think it also makes them feel like, especially for me where my grid is very curated, I think people want to feel that I'm a real person and that
Hmm.
if I can achieve X and I do the dishes, then they can achieve it too, like, if
Yeah.
it really gives them so much strength. So that's one. The other thing that I have always that I have changed, I used to put links. So if I was selling a course, I would put links. I don't do that anymore. What I now do is I do a question box. I said, if you like the link, just drop the word podcast or
Hmm.
blog post or whatever there. So A, you get engagement, and B, you don't have that link out that
Hmm.
drops off. So, little things like that. And the other thing that always works and is also super helpful is polls. What do you want to
Hmm.
see? What do you think is better? Left or right? This outfit or that outfit?
Hmm.
Pink lipstick or red lipstick? People want to get involved. They want to share their opinions. They want to ask questions. Always, always, always works.
Very good. Okay, what's number 3 in terms of the 5 mistakes creators are making on Instagram? This is really
I think
good.
yeah, so I think people think that they like, let's say when Reels first started, and Reels, of course, as you know, was like a kind of imitation of TikTok, right? So
Yeah.
when TikTok came on the scene, it was short, it was snappy, it was fun, it was,
Mhm.
all the things. And in the beginning, that worked gorgeously, and people were growing, super fast, super big. And now, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, they're still doing that. Whereas things have moved on. Things are
Mhm.
always moving on. The algorithms are always changing. So you need to be adjustable and adaptable. If you're doing 7-second reels and that worked a year ago, awesome. But if it's not working anymore, you need to adjust, you need to adapt, you need to check your stats. What I'm
Mhm.
noticing is that longer form content, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, even a minute, it's doing so incredibly well. And I'm also noticing that reach wise it's doing well, engagement it's doing well, but for me, my conversions are higher. So I
Mhm.
might not necessarily get as many views as I do with a 10-second reel, just, because you get more views, obviously, because it's so short. But
Mhm.
people are sticking around, and hopefully you're sharing something with of real value in that minute, 45 seconds, or whatever it is you're doing. People are more likely to press the follow button.
Very
That
good.
is that
Mm.
is something I have noticed because you're going deeper, you're going further, you're going into the nitty-gritty. And also, it means that you have to train to have an incredible hook. You need to keep the story going, to keep people's attention there, maybe
Mhm.
flicking the camera, maybe there's a kind of twist or whatever it is, and a really strong conclusion slash call to action. Like
Mhm.
it is more work, but the reward is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, I think we all love the short videos, obviously, because people's attention spans are very short. And I have seen them both. I've seen where short videos cause me to go viral and gain people. But I definitely agree that when someone is consuming a longer piece of your content, they are a little bit more invested in you and your story or whatever the journey
Yeah.
you're taking them on, and their ability to believe that they like you, know you, and potentially could trust you, it goes up a lot higher the more they're able
Yes.
to kind of consume you, especially like, let's just say you're doing a cooking video. Well, people want to see they want to see everything, right? And if you're able to take somebody, like I'm thinking about somebody right now, his name is Desmond. He has like 1 million followers on Instagram. And he goes on this journey telling you about here's this dish he's getting ready to make for his family, and you're so invested in the entire process, and then you want to see him eat or the family eats. And but now, because I've watched him and what he's doing,
Mm,
I trust him as a chef. I trust him
yeah.
as someone who cooks for his family, and then my
Yeah.
likelihood to listen to what he says or do what he's telling me to do is much higher.
Yes. And I'm going to add to that. So, not just the whole kind of going for some longer form content, but I think mixing it up. So, as you said, if you want to get lots of views, if you want to go viral, a nice, short, snappy, engaging, value piece of content is always going to hit differently than,
Yeah.
a 2-minute reel, right?
Hmm.
But that 2-minute reel is doing something else. It's that deeper engagement, that deeper connection. And then let's also not forget diversifying your content even further by including carousels, like
Hmm.
a photo dump to take people behind the scenes of what your week was like, of what you've been up to, of what's
Hmm.
happened, just something, or like it could be text based carousels. It doesn't matter, but having something there that meets the different needs of your audience,
Hmm.
that is really where it's at, rather than being like, okay, 7-second reels, I'm going viral.
Yeah.
That worked 2 years ago, six. No, we gotta expand, we gotta be broader, we gotta be more versatile than that. And
Yeah.
especially if you want to be on the platform long term, you gotta adjust and adapt constantly.
Yeah, I'm curious. Have you noticed that your carousels go to more of your followers? Like I've been testing my stats and I'm like,
Yeah.
huh, all of my reels go to 85%
Yeah.
non-followers. Any of my image-based posts or carousels go to 99%
Yeah.
followers. Is that yours too?
That is true. The only time I've seen that different is if your very first slide on your carousel is text based and it's juicy. So if it you're
Interesting.
very yeah, so if it's something like I made $1 million in 2024, here's how. You're gonna bet your bottom dollar it will go well beyond your followers. Do you know what
I
I mean?
see.
So
Mhm.
but you gotta have nice big chunky text, like
Yeah.
black on white, white on black, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
really that jumps out. Because if it's just like a random photo of like, whatever happened that week,
And it's
it's
you.
it's just you. It's just going to be your
Yeah.
audience who are going to be interested. So that's the only time I've seen the carousel beat that
Hmm. Yeah.
trend and actually have the potential to go viral.
For sure. Yeah, very good. Because I was like, we as a content creator, we're always testing our content. And I said, huh, this is
Mm,
interesting. When I do this, this happens, and
mhm.
this happens. And it just lets us know when I'm really trying to talk to my current followers, then
Yes.
I need to do X, Y, and Z. And so it lets
Yes.
me, when I'm utilizing my strategy, I'm knowing how to talk to my followers guaranteed, and I
Exactly.
know how to talk to non-followers. So just
So
something to note for you guys that are listening, that
totally.
like you gotta allow yourself to do a multitude of different things, not a million things, but just allowing yourself to be creative with your strategy when it comes to Instagram.
Can I add to that, just to make it more practical, is I think that's really vital knowledge and vital tactic during a launch. Like during a
Mhm.
launch, you don't want to just post stuff that is going to reach new people. Yeah, you want to
Mhm.
bring new people in. You want to tell them that you're launching XYZ course, right?
Right.
But ultimately, you also need to be able to reach the people that already press the follow button, the people that have
Mhm.
already engaged with you, because they're gonna be much more likely to buy. They already pressed the
Mhm.
follow button. They're already in your sphere. They already like what you do. Now they
Yeah.
need to know. You need to be able to put the offer in front of them. So I think during
Mhm.
a launch, it is great to bring in some carousels, even if or specifically because it
Yeah.
reaches your audience already. So that's the,
Exactly.
that's when you need to think about when's it time for outreach and getting new people? When's it time to start really connecting with the people that are there? That's
Yep.
during a launch, you better believe my Instagram stories are on fire. Like, that's when I double
Exactly.
down, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so what's number 4?
I know it's not the one you wanna hear, but it is the golden ticket, consistency. So,
Mhm.
I do notice people come in, especially again during a launch, they're doing all the things, they're posting, they're out there, and then they're burnt out. You don't hear from them for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a month, 2 month, and, you will be punished, I guess, and I think that's actually something in maybe if you can share, because 'cause I'm not a TikTok person at all, but I
Mhm.
noticed that if I don't post on TikTok's cool with that. And then if I post again, it's fine. But if I don't post on Instagram for a week, 2 weeks, and I come back on Instagram, there's like a little dip. Like Instagram definitely 100% wants and
Mhm.
needs you to post consistently. So I think a good strategy is to pace yourself. If you can only do 2 a week, that's fine, but then really be consistent with it. And also
Mhm.
reuse the stuff that you've got. So
Mhm.
let's just say you do something about whatever my week, like a carousel post about the different photos of different things that you did that week. Is there one thing, and that kind of blows up? Like people are obsessed with it. Is that something in that carousel that you can take out and post as a reel with, you kind of a behind the scenes and text over it? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if there's something that hit the mark, I'll give you an example. So, for example, I had a post do really well about gear that I use. So, every time I post something about gear, it does really well. So, then I have a reel where I talk about what tripod I use. And
Yeah.
then, if that performs well, I also post it as a carousel. So, the
Mhm.
same information, but it's just presented differently. I
Mhm.
post something, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to come up with something brand new. I just have to take something that worked and
Mhm.
reformulate it or, rejig it in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. And it allows me, or sometimes also just straight up repost. It just allows me to be consistent even when things are a little bit hectic.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the reasons why we always teach our audience to do a B-roll. So I do this thing where I teach people how to film B-roll, and then once a month we all jump on Zoom for like 5 minutes, and then we all film B-roll like just live on Zoom. So our computers are up, and we're walking around the house filming all this different B-roll, and we have all this footage to be able to utilize for an entire month. And so when I think about creatives, it's like they're going to film the video or whatever for the reel, but what if they actually film the entire process? You're filming yourself at the grocery store, you're filming yourself when you're putting the things on the table that you're getting ready to plate, or you're getting ready to organize for your shot. All of that is content that can be later used as footage. It may not be the most aesthetically pleasing, but it's still like a behind the scenes type of experience, and people connect with real people and real pages. And so a lot of time I think that we sometimes we get into this perfect, that everything has to look and be and feel like what it
Mm.
normally is, but we're dealing with human beings on the other side of their phones, and they're like, they want to experience all of you.
I love it. Exactly. And B-roll, again, you can use it as a something on your Instagram stories. You can use it also, as a standalone reel. You
Mhm.
can use it in your carousel. Like it's so versatile. You can
Mhm.
reuse it and just
Yes.
have a different text over it. It's
Mhm.
gold. It's the
Yeah,
most amazing thing. I
for
love that.
sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Students
So
are
what you
getting
got
all
up
the
at number
tips.
5?
Right. Like another thing, and this is something I'd actually be curious to hear your thoughts about. But what I notice is there's things that I post on Instagram that don't perform at all on TikTok. Because at the
Mhm,
moment my strategy, I'm all in on Instagram and TikTok, I just repost. I think it's
mhm,
very interesting to see how audiences are so different
mhm,
even though, like, you think not, like, you think it's, they're both real TikToks, short form video, but I just noticed that they're 2 different audiences, and so, with that said, if you want to be both on Instagram and TikTok, is to adjust and adapt either the hook or how the length or the song that you're choosing or whatever, so it really specifically suits Instagram, aka or, really specifically suits, TikTok. I don't know if you've noticed a kind of difference between the 2 platforms as well.
yeah. So how are you filming and editing?
So I film in, VN, which is like a Vlog Now app. I
Yeah.
don't I don't film on, Instagram, and I edit in that app, and I do it specifically for Instagram because
Oh, I
I know
see.
the hook that works, I know the flow, I know the things, and then I just repurpose it on TikTok. Sometimes it blows up, sometimes it's the same, sometimes it doesn't
Mhm.
perform at all. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. So are you reposting the reel or reposting the exported file
The
from the
exported
app?
file. So it doesn't have the Instagram stamp
Oh,
or anything
interesting.
like
Oh,
that.
okay, cool. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what that is. I've had people who had that same issue, and the issue has been because it was posted as a reel, and then there's the
Mm.
metadata on
Yeah.
because because like now Instagram is putting the logo on it, of course, with the watermark. But people were reposting reels on TikTok even without the watermark, and TikTok is so sensitive that it
Mm.
knows that that video it just came from reel. So that's definitely a no no. I'm not currently experiencing that same issue because
Mm.
I film in my phone, I edit in CapCut,
Ah.
and then I export to both of them, and they perform well at different times. So I'm seeing with
Mm.
TikTok that my video will sometimes blow up in a month, 2 months, maybe even
Yeah.
three. And then with Instagram, sometimes it will blow up within 3 or 4 weeks. So the way
Yes.
that I kind of operate with all of my content is this content is being pushed out. None of this is going to make or break me today, but my
Mm.
intent is to it's going to make it through the algorithm as it does.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take my stories as instant type of things of like I can control what happens throughout the day with that. 'Cause I remember one of my most viral videos on Instagram blew up after 4.5 weeks to like 1.6
Mhm.
million. And
Wow.
one of my most viral videos on TikTok blew up in 90 days.
Ha.
So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's their job to pick and choose whatever's happening. So I'm like, well, my job is to know here are potential videos
Mm.
that are going to do well, but they may be over time. So
Yeah.
when I'm putting out content, I'm not looking for the instant result. I'm looking for the
Yeah.
long
Long
term. And
game.
that's what's
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah.
happening. Yeah.
I love that. For me, but again, this is very specific to me, just because I've been on Instagram for a long time and my feed is very curated. I
Hmm.
notice that if I take things that are too curated and I post them on TikTok, those don't perform. If
Yeah.
I re-edit it and it feels more at home, it's got more an at home vibe versus I use a professional camera, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I noticed that's the difference. Whereas my audience on Instagram is used to me, posting pretty things, whereas
Hmm.
the audience I've started building on TikTok, they do like it a little kind of rough around the edges still.
Hmm.
That's the one thing I have noticed. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, but
TikTok
I don't
definitely
know
wants
TikTok.
to they want you to be consistent with how whoever you are, right? So
Hmm.
I've seen accounts who have the most high-end cameras and just
Yeah.
everything is so amazing, but all of their content is
Yes.
that. And so they blow up because that's what they're used to
Hmm.
experiencing. But if they're used to you being a little bit rough or you feel more behind the scenes tight, then
Yeah.
that's what they want to experience from you. That's like certain accounts on Instagram if it's like what the Novella Noor, like she's someone there's certain things I expect that how she's gonna
Hmm.
show up. And if she shows up differently, then it's like,
Like, what's up?
I didn't
Yeah.
come to see that. I want to see from you what I want to see.
Mhm.
And I think that
Gotcha.
that's like you said with Instagram, they want A and TikTok wants B. So you showing up consistently being B is what they
It's
want
looking
from
like,
you on
yeah,
TikTok.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Amazing. Now, the last one, I think we're over 5, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
give you one more.
Mhm.
I think the other, mistake that people make is not, just too the intros are too long,
Oh.
they're too dry,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's nothing there grabbing me,
Yeah.
nothing. So you gotta it's really it doesn't matter how great your reel is after the 3-second mark. No one's gonna look at that if the first 3
No one.
seconds and it's so upsetting, it's so upsetting.
Mhm.
But what I also think is great, and again, I don't know if you do this, like, sometimes if I have a reel where I'm just like, "Dang, I just know this is the content my audience," but it tanks, I
Mhm.
will go back, I will look at that for those first 3 seconds again, I will rejig it, and then maybe a week later or 2 weeks later or even 2 months later, post it again with that
Mhm.
different,
Yeah.
different hook, a stronger hook, and then see it perform. Because I'm just like, I know they need this. I know. Like
Mhm.
this is the DM that keeps coming. How am I lighting this, whatever? And here I've done a reel and it's tanked. Like, no, it's because I didn't
Mhm.
nail that hook. And unless you're super engaging or you're zooming in and out or you've got like great music, like you talking to camera straight for 1 minute is not going to cut the mustard. Like you
Correct.
have to bring in like even a change of angle, whatever it is, there has to be something juicy right at the
Yeah.
start. And it is literally that. It is literally that 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Like I do a lot of public speaking, and when I am talking to them about video hooks, I oftentimes will poll the room, like hundreds of people, and I'll say, when you're watching a video on Instagram or TikTok, how long do you give a video before you scroll away? And they all like it's probably like 80% would say I give it 1 to 2 seconds.
Mm,
Some of them will give it 3, maybe 5 seconds, but most times that thing lands, and within a second, you're scrolling away.
100%.
So I agree with you that you can't have these long intros. You've got to give people a reason to stop and watch the content, like whether it's a reel, whether it's a image, or it's a carousel. That first 1 to 1.5 seconds, 3 seconds is the most important. You can intro yourself afterwards, but
Yes.
the beginning is why they're going to stop.
Yes.
So I
And I
agree
also
with
think
you.
a lot of people make the mistake that they think because when you have an idea in your mind, you think everybody will know that that's what you want to communicate, that they have that. No, they
Yeah.
won't know. They don't
No.
understand. They didn't read the book, like you need to
Mm.
give it to them straight from and I think that is the muscle, the creative muscle that most people and I feel
Mhm.
that's still something I need to still like every time I'm like, dang, that the hook, the hook, the
Mhm.
hook, the hook.
Yeah, very true. This is really good. Thank you for 6 tips. That's like everything she said is exactly what I would say, no matter what type of creator you are, whether you are in
That's
the
it.
food industry or you're in an educator industry. This is exactly what I say when it comes to growing on Instagram. You're hearing somebody in a different niche say it. And so it's like, this is what's working and it's
This is
making
what's
her significant
working.
amount of money in her business, but it's helping your clients, right?
For sure, for sure, for sure. And then the one that is specific to me, but I was thinking actually it's not specific. I do think good lighting always helps. And I say this with my lighting
Mhm.
terrible this evening. But when I'm creating content for the gram, the
Mhm.
lighting's gotta be right. So
Mhm.
either that is you're standing in front of a window, so you also look better. In my case, the food looks better, or you get
Mhm.
some artificial lights, like it's honestly you can get them so cheaply now, but you'll look
Mhm.
better. And it's just more engaging. It just looks that little pinch more professional. I think with that really rough around the edges, that really really rough. I feel we've moved beyond that. Like people are
Mhm.
expecting, especially on Instagram. I can't speak for TikTok, but especially on Instagram, people do want to see something that's a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more put
Yeah.
together. And
They want
so
somebody who's
good luck.
intentional about what they're creating, for sure.
Yeah. And especially if you're asking for, a good sum of money for your courses or whatever it is, like you need to look the part. You need to
Yeah.
look like you put some effort into your content. And good lighting is fundamental to that.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
I
so
agree.
that's seven tips.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So good. Okay, so listen, I know you guys are enjoying Kimberly and all the things, and so I asked her to give you guys something obviously complimentary that you guys can opt into, and then if you're someone and you want to work with her, then obviously we're going to put links for her in the show notes. But you mentioned that you have a tool that you wanted to offer everybody. Can you tell us what that
Yes.
tool is, and then guys, we'll have
Yeah.
a link in the show notes.
Yes, so I have a free PDF with 10 tools I use to optimize my Instagram. All of the tools are free and
Mhm,
will really help you to create something that's a little bit more up level, a little bit more curated, a little bit more together. So we'll pop the link to that in the
mhm,
show notes. And then apart from that, I have also just released a brand new book called How to Make Your Food Famous. It's all
mhm.
about how to optimize Instagram, social media, videography tips, lighting tips, all that good stuff. So that's my brand new book. If you want to take it a step further, that is the one to get. It's available everywhere. And yeah, that's the one I'd recommend.
Yeah, I love the title. The title's very creative. I can see that on Good Morning America. But so, Kimberly, this has been amazing. I am very fascinated by what you have done on Instagram, but also just in your business in general. It's really fun when you can see people in just do what they love, not only have success, but help other people to be able to have success. So it's really cool to hear your story and your journey, and I mean, and your client's journey. So I'm so glad that you were able to come here on the show. So you guys, you can actually watch this episode on YouTube if you are not watching this on YouTube, and then of course you're listening here on the podcast. And so if you guys want to connect with Kimberly, there's going to be all her information is going to be in the notes, and if you're on YouTube, it's going to be in the description. And so, Kimberly, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so, so much, Kenya, for having me. I'm so grateful for being able to connect with your audience in this way. And thank you so much.
All right, you guys, well, we'll see you guys on the next one.